What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about the remainder of 2.3 and the upcoming 2.4 characters and which one is going to be better for your account. Currently, we have Jade and Argenti on the current banners, and in the future, we're going to be getting Jiaoqiu and Yunli with a couple of other reruns that I'm going to be discussing later in the video. The goal is to help you decide what character would be best to pull for your account, if any at all. But regardless, if you're summoning for Jade, Yunli, Jiaoqiu, or any other reruns, you should click the link in the description and check out our friends over at lootbar.gg. This is a completely safe, fast, and reliable way of getting your premium currency for your favorite Huohuo games like Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and Zone Zero at a discounted price. As you can see, you can save 15% on Genshin, 14% on Star Rail, and 10% on Zone Zero. And once you click your game, you're going to select the amount of currency you want to purchase, enter your UID and your server, make sure this information is 100% correct, and you're going to click Top Up Now, submit your payment information, and within minutes, you're going to get your seller Jades right in your game. It is really that simple, fast, and easy. So make sure if you are going to summon, check our friends over at lootbar.gg. Link in the description below. All right, firstly, we're going to be talking about Jade. I will try to give a score from 0 to 10 at the end of each character review, so stay tuned for that. Jade is a pure fiction mad lad. So off the cuff, if you are one of those players that are just currently started recently and you are having issues with one of your teams in pure fiction, she is going to be an extremely valuable character that eventually will just pay for herself because she deals enough brute force damage to where the weaknesses of the enemies really don't have any consequence on if you're going to clear with a good score or not. All you really need to do is have Jade and somebody else, kind of like Herta or Himeko. If you have Blade, that's perfect. It's probably his best partner. But pretty much anybody, any other follow-up attacker, you can have them next to Jade, and Jade will perform fantastically well in pure fiction, pretty much guaranteeing you a top score or a full clear so you can get all the rewards. She does have a little bit of utility with her Debt Collector, which can give 30 speed to another follow-up attacker or another teammate. Doesn't necessarily have to be a follow-up attacker, although she performs best with another follow-up attacker, and also the extra damage that she's going to be dealing at the end of each of those follow-up attacks or just attacks in general. So in pure fiction, she is a top pick. So if we are going to evaluate her pure fiction value, I think she sits at around a 9 out of 10 or an 8.5 out of 10. In pure fiction, maybe I'll give her a 9.5 out of 10. She's really strong. Not as strong as Black Swan, but she is very strong. Other than that, her kit is very straightforward. You put the mark on herself or somebody else, and then they're going to just go crazy. If you have Himeko, Herta, if you've tried Himeko and Herta with Jade on the same team, it kind of gets pretty insane. Like, all those follow-up attack teams are very satisfying to watch. So pure fiction, she's very strong. Now for MOC, it's a little bit harder. You can brute force with her. I have seen people brute force with Jade on the team in MOC 12 and 11. So it is doable, but it heavily requires either her signature light cone, or it requires heavy investment on relics, but she can still do it, as she is a character that will perform depending on the investment you give her when it comes to MOC. Obviously, if you have a game mode like a Simulated Universe, any character can perform spectacularly well in Simulated Universe, so we're not really concerned about that. But if you're going to get her with MOC, you're going to pretty much have to pair her up with another follow-up attacker, kind of like Blade, and she's going to perform a little bit better in that scenario in particular. Kind of an extension to the Jade conversation, we just got a new 5-star erudition light cone in the Herta shop, which is very good, very strong, that you can also use with Jade. So you don't, even though her signature light cone is very strong and is the strongest light cone you can possibly have on her, and most people argue that you kind of need it, I kind of make the argument that you really don't if you're running this new light cone. It gives you a little bit more attack and speed, which is really good for pure fiction. If I ever get Jade, I'm probably never going to run her in MOC myself, and it's mostly going to be run in pure fiction for my second team, because I have Black Swan on my first team. That gives me 40,000 score every time, and then I need another team that I always have to scramble to figure out. So I think if I end up getting Jade, I'm not decided yet, but if I end up getting Jade, it's probably going to be because of pure fiction. All right, so overall for Jade, I would say that her pull value lies at around a 6 out of 10, depending on if you have pure fiction teams already set up. If you don't have a single pure fiction team already set up, then she will provide you a lot of value. So if you don't have a pure fiction team set up, she will be at around an 8.9, 8 to 9 range. But if you already have a semi-competent pure fiction team, her pull value is going to drop significantly to about a 7. And then for MOC, you're better off investing in a different character for MOC. So her pull value is a little bit low when it comes there. And if you average both out, she comes out at about a 6 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10 pull value for Jade. All right, Jiaoqiu has been long awaited and long regarded as the Acheron nihility healer type of deal. Well, that's no longer the case. He doesn't have the heal anymore, so that pretty much deterred a lot of people from pulling for our boy Jiaoqiu. But not only that, his kit was supposed or was leaked in the beginning to be a defensive shredding team, but he just ended up being a vulnerability focus / dot focus character, which will help the majority of Acheron teams, if I do say so myself. And I do say this with a lot of experience and a lot of conversations that I've had with people who have actually played Jiaoqiu at E0 all the way to E6. So I am not talking out of my ass when I say that Jiaoqiu, even though he seems like he has been scuffed, and he was scuffed, he was nerfed pretty much all the way down, he is still an upgrade to Pela. I'm just going to say that straight up. He's still an upgrade to Pela. Now, the argument can be, is he as big as an upgrade to where it warrants a 5-star premium character? That is going to be for you to decide. I'm just going to go over his kit really quickly and see how it turned out. So for his skill, fire damage 150% of Jiaoqiu's attack single enemy, 90% to adjacent enemies, and you inflict the Ashen Rose stack. So for those of you who don't know how his kit works, he's going to be inflicting some stacks kind of like how Black Swan does it. Essentially, he's very reminiscent to Black Swan, except that per stack that the enemies have, the enemies will take increased damage, or as the calculation people say, vulnerability. They're going to get a 15% vulnerability on the first stack and all the way up to 35% vulnerability at 5 stacks. Now, you can't necessarily get rid of these stacks. Once these stacks stack up, there's no really a way to bring them back down unless the enemies die, which is pretty good. His whole kit revolves around this ultimate called the Pyrograph Arcanium. Says the number of Ashen Rose stacks on enemy targets to the highest number of Ashen Rose present on the battlefield, then activates a domain and deals fire damage equal to 100% to all enemies. So AoE attack and sets pretty much a domain expansion. While the domain expansion exists, enemy targets receive 50% increased ultimate damage. Immediately, we're going to think Acheron synergy with this because she deals the majority of ultimate damage, but there's a lot of other ultimate damage dealing characters like Argenti herself. Jade does a lot of ultimate damage as well. Another character is Kafka. Kafka does a lot of ultimate damage herself as well. Jingliu, all those characters that deal a lot of ultimate damage will benefit from this. And this is on top of the 35% max stacked or Rose and Ash or whatever his stacks are, this is on top of that. So in total, ultimates will end up doing 50% extra damage, which is the equivalent of Topaz's debuff, essentially. And they also have a 60% base chance of being inflicted with 1 stack when they take action. So, and then this whole thing lasts for about 3 turns, and if he dies, obviously it goes away. So this thing right here, this thing that says 60% base chance of being inflicted with 1 stack of Ash and Rose, this will count as a debuff infliction, and it will trigger Acheron's passive. So, which means this will give Acheron an ultimate stack. Every time an enemy takes a turn and they are inflicted, if this hits, which we're going to go over how much you need to actually make this 100% guarantee, it will give Acheron a stack. So nowhere in this kit says that there's a max amount of stacks that it can be inflicted per enemy per ultimate. However, people have been speculating that there is a maximum of 6 stacks. I don't know as of right now. People were saying it was a bug. People are saying that it was intentional. So we're just going to have to wait and see until he actually releases so we see what it is. But let's assume that it is 6 stacks per ultimate. His ultimate is only 100 energy. His ultimate is even 100 energy. That is nothing. And if you run him with, let's say, the tutorial light cone that gives you extra energy, you can pretty much fire off his ultimate as often as you fire Pela's ultimate. So what I'm trying to get with this is that his ultimate has 100% uptime on his domain expansion, which means that every enemy turn is going to give Acheron 1 stack. That not only increases their vulnerability, it also gives her 1 step closer to her firing off her ultimate, which means that she will be able to stack her ultimate faster than just having Pela. People keep doom posting Jiaoqiu saying that Jiaoqiu doesn't help Acheron get her ultimate faster, so Pela is just the same as Acheron. That is just not true. Running Jiaoqiu instead of Pela is the difference between firing off 3 ultimates versus 2 ultimates on an Acheron team on a regular rotation or cycle when it comes to Acheron. Not only that, the damage amplification is actually higher with Jiaoqiu. So yeah, Jiaoqiu is actually a really, really strong character to have. The only thing that it would have been great for him to not lose was a little bit of healing, because that would mean that you were able to run a team with no actual sustain, and the little sustain that you get from his healing would have been enough to maintain your team. But now you're just going to have to brute force it with him if you don't want to run a healer. But honestly, with the damage amplification that this guy is putting on the field, and the extra dot damage, because let's not forget that he actually does some dot damage here as well. 180% of Jiaoqiu's attack as fire dot is going to be enough supplemental damage to be able to run the team without a support, if I had to make a guess. Now let's read his talents. Seared Scent. While domain exists, enemies entering combat will be afflicted with Ash and Roast. This also stacks up an Acheron debuff. Like it also helps Acheron stack faster. So in Pure Fiction, Acheron is going to stack a lot faster because of this passive right here. The number of stacks applied will match the highest number of Ash and Roast stacks possessed by any unit in the domain, with a minimum of 1 stack. Okay, so essentially, if you have a character with 5 stacks, the oncoming enemies is going to get immediately 5 stacks, which is fantastic. Second one, for every 15% of Jiaoqiu's effect hit rate exceeds 80%, additionally increase attack by 60% up to 240, which means you can get this attack increase up to 4 times. And if we do the math, 15% times 4 is 60, 60 plus 80, 140%, which is coincidentally how the exact amount of effect hit rate that you need to guarantee a debuff at 60% basic chance. To summarize it, you need 140% effect hit rate to effectively build a good Jiaoqiu. Kind of like he's really, really close, really reminiscent to Black Swan. He gets 15 energy when the battle starts, 28% effect hit rate on the trace, fire damage, and speed, which are fantastic traces. And yeah, if I had to say, if you have a Acheron team and your Acheron is just not performing the way that you want it to, Jiaoqiu is a great pull. If you have a Pure Fiction team and you have a dot team, or if you have a dot team that you have Kafka, you have Black Swan, and you're running it with Gunaifin, or you're running it with Sampo, you're running it with whoever, Jiaoqiu is going to be better 100% of the time. Jiaoqiu, Black Swan, Kafka, ultimate dot team, okay? And then you can just run either Ruan Mei, you can run whoever as the last slot. It really doesn't matter, because these 3 in Pure Fiction, once he has his domain up and Black Swan starts killing everything, then Black Swan, nobody's gonna move, you're just gonna win, okay? So dot team, 9 out of 10. For Acheron teams, 9 out of 10. And then for debuffing, overall debuffing, also 9 out of 10. So this guy's a really, really strong kit, even though he was nerfed heavily. So even though his kit was pretty much butchered, I still think he has really, really good pull value for a lot of people. Overall, I'm going to give this guy an 8 out of 10. Even though I say 9 out of 10 for Dot, 9 out of 10 for Acheron, those are not the only 2 teams that exist on the game. Just for an overall account, I think he is an 8 out of 10, 7.5 to 8 out of 10 pull value in my opinion. All right, next up we got Yunli. She is a physical destruction character who focuses on countering pretty much. She is Clara 2.0. The reason I say that is because she has essentially the same things Clara has. Damage reduction. She has kind of like a pseudo, well, she has like a full taunt, but Clara doesn't have any taunt. But she has a full taunt, pretty much enticing enemies to hit her. And then whenever she does get hit, she will fire off some counters. She also can restore her own HP while at the same time dealing damage, which is really, really nice. Now, her whole kit revolves around her having her ultimate, and she does have this really cool mechanic where she can stack 2 ultimates. Kind of like how Argenti has 2 ultimates, but his second ultimate is different. Both of her ultimates are the same. So you can have 2 instances or 2 uses of her ultimate pretty much stacked up. So whenever she is in her ultimate stance, she's going to convert her counter into a parry. And then the parry, when the parry is active, she's going to launch it into its slash, which is going to deal 220% of Yunli's attack to one enemy and 110% to the adjacencies because she's destruction. And then on the second time that she does the slash to the same enemy, she's going to initiate into it call, which is the exact same as the first hit, but at the tail end, kind of like how Argenti does it. She's going to deal 6 instances of damage, each equal to 72% of Yunli's attack, which in turn turns it into a 432% multiplier. And then if we add the 220 multiplier to that, that is a 652% multiplier on a single target, which is really, really high. It's higher than Zila's ultimate. It's pretty much higher than every other ultimate that I've seen, actually. So it's a really, really strong attack. The only problem that I see with Yunli is that she has no other way of doing this much damage. So she solely relies on getting hit by the enemy. And that is not entirely a positive thing, because you literally have no control over how much damage you're going to do in a given turn. If the enemy decides not to hit you, then you're just screwed, you know? You just don't deal any damage, which means that she is very unlikely to be your main damage dealer on a team, unless you know for a fact that every hit the enemy does is an AoE hit. She can play SP neutral because she only needs to do this whenever she wants to heal. So you don't really need to use her skill unless you're dying. And if you run a healer, then you necessarily don't need to use a healing or her skill at all, unless you just want to do the extra damage, which is fine. Now, you will not have any energy problems because she gets 15 energy every time she gets hit or launches a counter, which is pretty nice. She does have one of the stronger techniques to start a fight that I personally believe in the game. She's going to launch a Intuit Call, which is this massive hit right here. This massive hit, the bottom one. The second massive hit with an 80% damage bonus increased on it. So the first hit, you kind of always want to start with her technique, because this is a massive hit, and you can start the fight pretty much just knocking out the little ads or whatever. Yeah, she has a very strong technique. Bonus abilities, which are her traces. When using counter, Yunli's attack increased by 30%. So she gives herself a lot of attack, which means that for the orb, she preferably would want a physical damage orb. While in parry state, resist crowd control debuff receive and damage received by 20%. She gives herself some damage reduction. And if you run her with Swan, which is a really great partner for her, she's pretty much never going to be taking any damage, and those two together can just carry, like just those two together on the same team can just carry you through anything, because they're just not going to die. Now, Fire Wheel, this trace is the one that's going to unlock the Intuit Call. So this is the main priority as soon as you get your Yunli. Unlock Fire Wheel, because if you don't have this, she's going to do no damage at all. Every second Intuit slash that you launch is going to be an Intuit Call, which is currently, or more than likely, her only way of ever getting Intuit Call, aside from her technique. As far as her traces, she gets 28% attack, 18% HP, and 6.7% crit rate, which is pretty nice. You know, it's nothing crazy. It's about 2 substat rolls in crit rate, which is fine. Yunli is probably going to be my least favorite out of all these characters that are going to be releasing. She is strong, but she is very niche. If you are a new player, she has a little bit more value because she will help you clear pretty much every single story all the way through Penacony. So you won't have an issue clearing story with Yunli because of how her damage reduction works and how her countering works. And all she really needs is to be paired up with a healer, and then that is it. She will not die unless you're just under leveled and underpowered. So if you are an early game player, I would say she has like a 7 or 7 at most pull value. If you are a mid game player with that, you're already like farming gear and you're like working your way up the MOC or up the pure fiction, I don't think she really holds a lot of value, especially if you have a character like Clara already built up. They're very similar. You don't really need an extra Clara, you know? I'm actually very disappointed in this character. You know, for a limited character, she doesn't really do much. So yeah, I'm just gonna go and say overall, she has like a 5 pull value, maybe 4 pull value. Like, it's not really high. I'm sorry for all my Yunli fans. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm sleeping on Yunli. But I don't, you know, she's not cutting it for me. Okay, let's talk about reruns now. Currently we have Argenti on the fray with Jade. So Argenti for me was a surprise pull. I was not planning on pulling Argenti. I did not want to pull Argenti when he first ran, but I ended up pulling him, and he was actually very strong. I was very surprised by Argenti. He can deal a lot of damage. I've seen him hit about 600k damage on a full board, just completely destroy the enemy. Everybody sleeps on my boy Argenti. I don't even have his light cone. I have the battle pass light cone, and I started getting the battle pass light cone when I got him. I think if I get this battle pass, which I am going to get, it's going to be my last copy of the light cone. So I'm finally going to be able to max it out. But he is very strong. For Pure Fiction, he was obviously the character that released with Pure Fiction. So he's very good in Pure Fiction. And I've used him in some MOCs as well. Even though that in MOC, he kind of struggles a little bit. You're kind of forced to run Ting Yun and Huohuo with him. And then he also, and then in that scenario, you're going to have to run a second Harmony character with Dance, or just run Sparkle, which is what I do. I just run Sparkle with him, and he just works wonders. But if you don't have Sparkle, you're kind of like screwed in that team comp. So my Argenti is usually my farm bot. I have him just to farm stuff. Like right now, we're just farming right here. and he just does really well in farming. At least for me. But I understand that not everybody's going to have a character, especially a premium character, just to farm relics or just to farm traces or whatever. I do use him a lot in Pure Fiction, but his pull value is actually really, really low. But he is a sleeper character. He does do a lot of damage. He does very, very well in pretty much every content. I've used him in MOC, I've used him in Pure Fiction, I've used him in Simulated Universe, and he does really, really well. But he's kind of in the same boat as Yunli. His pull value isn't really there for me. You know, I would say that for pretty much everybody in the game, Jade has higher pull value than him. So even though I think Argenti is a very, very strong character, I think his pull value is really low. I think I'm going to put him at 5 also with Yunli. So if you're planning on pulling for Argenti, I would recommend you just save. There's going to be a better Erudition character that's going to come out eventually, and it's going to be better than Argenti. If you like Argenti's design, obviously, and this applies to every character. If you like Argenti's design, then by all means, go for it. But as far as meta and pull value, his is pretty low, even though I think that people sleep on him. Next character we're going to talk about is Huohuo, and Huohuo is one of the best characters I have in my account. She's my second designated sustainer on the team. I use Huohuo with my Member de Lune. I use Huohuo in my Black Swan teams. I had Luocha before I had Huohuo, and ever since I've pulled Huohuo, I have not touched my Luocha. My Luocha has just been benched for this entire year. Like, he's been benched for months. He's been benched since December, November time. You know, like, he's just been out of the game because just Huohuo is just so much better. The cleansing. Anytime you're fighting against Kafka, you kind of want Huohuo because you just no chance you're gonna lose that fight with this character right here. She's so strong. The energy battery is very convenient. The healing is very good. Mine is not even very well built. Like, mine is level 75, 5k HP, like 139 speed. It's not even well built with a post-op conversation light cone that's not even maxed. And she does so well. It's actually insane. If you were missing a sustained character, let's say you pulled Aventurine, right? You pulled Aventurine, and this is the only sustain you have. You need a second sustainer. Huohuo is going to be the second sustainer for your team, especially if you have a dot team or a follow-up attack team that relies on ultimates. This character is just insane for those type of teams. Very, very good, very, very strong. So I'd say if you're missing a sustainer, she is a 9 out of 10 pull. And if you're not missing a sustainer, I still think she's very, very valuable. So say either 9 or 10 out of 10 pull value for Huohuo in any case, in every scenario. Now, last but not least is Black Swan, and Black Swan is one of my favorite characters to play in the game and one of my favorite character designs in the game. She's a 9 out of 10 pull. I'm just gonna say it straight out. She makes Pure Fiction a joke. Like, anybody who has Black Swan or has used Black Swan in any Pure Fiction mode, you will always have max score in one of your sides because of Black Swan. She kills things before even taking turns. She's just invaluable. Like, she's also a very, very good debuffer. She has a defense shred. She has vulnerabilities. If you know how to use her ultimate and how it works, you can use her as a very, very strong debuffer. I use her in most of my Acheron teams because I am able to time her ultimate with Acheron's ultimate, and she just enables a lot of damage. Her Arcana stacks deal like hundreds of thousands of damage. It's so satisfying to just see them stack up and then blow things up. She is so strong. I just say that for Pure Fiction, she's a 10 out of 10. Best character in the game for Pure Fiction. No questions asked. She is the top creme of the creme Pure Fiction character. For MOC, she's also extremely strong. Not only she's debuffing the entire enemy side, she is dealing a lot of damage with her Arcana stacks. If you have her with Kafka, you know that you're never losing that fight. She does a lot of good damage herself. She debuffs the enemy so her team can deal more damage. She can be played SP positive. She can be played SP neutral. Her debuff, her defense shred lasts for 3 turns, so you only have to skill once every 3 turns if you really want it. Like, she's just so strong. I was very surprised when I pulled her and I started using her. I was like, whoa, I knew she was good, but I didn't know she was that good. Overall, 9 out of 10 pull value in my opinion for Black Swan. Actually, I forgot to star her. She deserves a star for sure. She even had me so bad that I had to pull her light cone. All right, guys, I think that is everything. This is a very lengthy video, but I did go over like 6 characters. So excuse my yapping. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And until next time, guys, see ya.